Greetings, boils and ghouls. Welcome back to Midnight Movie Massacre. So I think with the state of the world right now and, everything that's going on, we all kind of need something that takes us back to a simpler time, right? One thing that definitely does that for me is giant fucking Japanese monster movies, man. Kaiju flicks, as the kids call them. I think we all remember a time, as kids, like being home, kicking around the house on the weekend, nothing to do, and some random channel would be running a marathon of the bastards, and I'd blow whole afternoons just watching giant monsters wreck shit. It's a great pastime, something that I like to revisit as often as I can. At least once a year I feel like I get on a good kaiju kick, and I figure since we're all kind of stuck home needing something to do, it's as good a thing as any. So our first movie is going to be Gammera the Invincible. This is an Americanized re-edit of Gammera the Giant Monster, which was released in 1965. This particular version of the film came out in 1966. This film was directed by Noriaki Yuasa and produced and distributed by Dai Films. It's the first film in the Gammera franchise, so naturally it marks the debut of the beloved giant murderous turtle himself. It stars Eiji Funakoshi, Harumi Kiritachi, and Junichiro Yamashita. It was released in Japan on November 27th of 1965. As I previously mentioned, we are discussing Gammera the Invincible, which is essentially the same movie with added in white people footage, basically, like the original Godzilla. Not a lot of information I could find right off the bat on who directed that portion of the movie, but I don't think it really matters. In any case, this was the first and last Gammera movie to be given a theatrical release here in the States. Basic gist of it is this Japanese scientist and his daughter and some fucking reporter guy are up in the North Pole studying Eskimos or some shit. They see some Russian planes flying overhead, and it turns out this is American airspace, so the Americans shoot those fucking Ruskies down. Unfortunately, one of them is carrying a nuclear weapon. It detonates on impact, cracking open the ice, and it releases Gammera. Gammera is this big prehistoric turtle from Eskimo folklore or whatever. They carve him on rocks and shit, and he basically just goes around and wrecks shit. Turns out he's from a prehistory era where all of the creatures consumed fire and things like that. So essentially Gammera goes around attacking oil reserves, drilling platforms, things like that, or power plants to absorb the energy from them. He quite literally eats fire. So he's going around doing this shit. Immediately upon waking up, he destroys the ship that brought the Japanese team through the ice and allegedly flies off. The rest of the world powers spend some time debating whether or not Gammera even exists, while sort of secretly gathering intel and forming a plan to deal with this giant destructive fucking turtle. Upon their first encounters, they realize that, they're failing pretty horribly to do any damage to Gammera, so there's nothing that they have in their arsenal that's going to be able to do any real damage to this massive beast. But it dawns on them that, he was frozen in the ice for millions of years, so maybe they could refreeze his ass. So they hatch this plan to hit him with these ice bombs, roll him onto his back, and then horrifyingly, I guess, leave him there to starve to death. It's pretty fucked up. Thankfully, though, that sumbitch can fly, which they already kind of knew, but they hadn't seen until that point. And he pretty much shoots, fire out of his leg holes after he retracts into his shell, and he spins around. It's fucking glorious. After they pull that shit on our boy Gam Gam, he decides that he doesn't want to fucking land anymore, so he's going around just staying airborne the entire time. Kind of stepping backwards a bit, we were earlier introduced to this slightly annoying, lonely, weird kid named Toshio, I forget exactly how to say it. He really likes turtles. His dad makes him get rid of his pet turtle, after which he is almost murdered, but then miraculously saved by Gammera. And even though Gammera destroyed their lighthouse home and almost fucking cost him his life, he decides that he's a gigantic Gammera fanboy. So while they're hatching this final plan to deal with Gammera, called Plan Z, this little kid's trying to tell him that maybe Gammera isn't all that bad. Maybe he's just grumpy and clumsy when he's hungry. So if they could learn how to deal with him, they could possibly tame him. They're like, fuck that noise, we're just gonna launch him into space. So they hatch this plan to use their oil reserves to do basically a giant scale version of the Trail of Reese's Pieces from E.T., only with fucking fire, to lure Gammera to this volcano island where they can then trap him in this capsule and launch his ass to Mars, essentially making him someone else's fucking problem. almost goes off without a hitch. Toshio gets in there and like almost gets himself and another poor man fucking killed. Typhoon shows up, almost dicks up the whole plan. Thankfully the volcano erupts and lures Gammera in the rest of the way, and they trap the poor bastard in a fucking rocket and fire him into space. Toshio's out there waving goodbye like it's somehow a happy ending, and the last thing you see on the screen is the words Sayonara Gammera. No matter which way you slice it, this first Gammera is a classic. Whether you're watching the superior Japanese version or the camp classic that is the fucking American version, either way you're going to have a good time. The American version has some really quotable B-movie cheese in it. The part where they're hitting on the secretary at the beginning of the movie is just a gem, as is the part where the two experts are arguing over Gammera on the talk show. It's worth watching this version of the movie just for that scene. I will say that the American shit like blends in pretty well with the Japanese shit in this version. It doesn't feel like it takes away from it too much. It feels like they were treating it with respect and nobody was really just acting like they were making throwaway footage for a movie that no one was going to give a shit about. Though to that point, the American stuff at a couple of points does make the movie a little bit more drawn out than it needs to be. It could probably be like 20 minutes shorter. In terms of the pros though, like, effects are awesome. Are they Godzilla level quality? No. But they're pretty damn good for what they had to work with. And they get a lot better in the second movie. Does this steal some beats from Godzilla? For sure. Its whole fucking existence is based on trying to capitalize on Godzilla. But I, along with many fans and a lot of critics at the time, think that Gammera brings enough of its own shit to the table that it stands alone next to Godzilla. And hopefully we can impress that upon a lot more of you guys through this review series, because Gammera is going to show up many, many more times. If I had to pick a favorite scene in the movie, it is definitely that first attack on the power plant by Gammera, where he like comes lumbering around those silos and they just unload on him and he just starts wrecking shit. There's just something fucking iconic about that scene. I also really like that scene where they're like trying to tell those kids to get out of the club and the band's like, nah, fuck that, let's keep rocking out, pretty much. And so they just keep jamming in there. And then all of a sudden the building collapses. It's amazing. There's a lot of great points in the movie. The lowest points in the movie are any scene where Toshio is on screen for more than 10 seconds. He's not the worst kid in B-movie history, but he's certainly not one of the better ones either. He's just kind of fucking annoying. That's all we got for Gammera the Invincible, guys. Not sure what we're going to be coming back with next. Whatever I decide to pop in, I guess. We'll see you back here when that happens. Cheers.